Alright, this is my presentation for spatial databases for USC. This is my information for the Navajo Nation that I gathered. I'll be going over a couple of things. First, my introduction, just the area that I'm applying my database to, my data, where to start, my databanks that I got online or I applied or that I downloaded from, the projection system that I use, and the cross-checking process for all my data. My conclusion, my actual database diagram, my two maps that I produced using my database, and then further development that I wish that my database will allow me to continue with. So the Navajo Nation is located in the Four Corners area, which is northeast Arizona, southwest Colorado, northwest New Mexico, and southeast Utah. The Navajo Nation is the largest Native American reservation in the U.S. It's about 27,425 square miles. Some of the issues on the Navajo Nation, one of them, I'm doing the most obvious issues if you ever visit the Navajo Nation. First, the utilities. Now the elders that live on the Navajo Nation still lack electricity, running water, and sewage. Public services such as school facilities and emergency facilities. Many people that live on the reservation have to travel 50 miles or more to get to public services. So the data where I started, first I thought maybe I just tap into the Navajo Nation as a resource. I contacted the land department, the GIS department, which are two different departments, which was kind of weird. The department, our Division of Transportation, as referred to as the DOT, the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority, the NTUA, is what they usually call it, and then Design and Engineering Services. Out of the 5 that I contacted, 4 were required to purchase information in order for me to use it. I'm still waiting on their packages to arrive. The Design and Engineering Services, I didn't really have a perfect contact with them. Instead, I was passed along to different people at the NNDES. So what they decided to do was just point me toward the websites. They do website designs for each chapter house, and they try to present as much information as possible. But of course, some of the links are still under construction. They're not completely finished. Some of them do have a little bit of information. I just took what I could from where I could, and that most of my information came from a Google search. I use lapahi.com 6.5. It's just a website that I found very useful because it had all the Navajo Nation chapter houses listed, along with chapter emails and just links to the websites. One other reason that I used it was because the person that manages the site actually works at Navajo Technical College where I am. And I did ask him a couple of questions on how he set it up and how he got that information up on his webpage. Another place that wasn't as credible is Wikipedia. The only reason I used it was just to have a list available of the communities. It had a nice list of existing communities. The issue there was it didn't have all the communities listed. It had some areas listed. For example, Bodway Gap was on the list, but it didn't have a link to anything. It was just kind of there in their list. That was pretty much what I used that for. So what I did with those 2 Google searches is I cross-checked them with my other sources. Harrison Lapahi, who works at NTC, Christopherson Martin, Stephen Chischilly, Joshua Bronston, Eric Bronston, Navajo, and my mom and my dad, Nyla and Ramson, and various other people across the Navajo Nation. Just people that live in the area and know a little bit about certain pieces. Most of this information was pretty much located in the northern area as well as the eastern area. They weren't 100%, so I had to talk to a lot of people about the information that I gathered from the Google search. Once I had the area pretty much set in place, I started looking for actual databanks. There's two places that I tapped into. Both are national data sets. One is from the USDA, the other one is from the USDC. The USDA has a spatial gateway, geospatial gateway. I just wanted to see what kind of information they had pertaining to polygons for the Navajo Nation, and then the U.S. Census Bureau had tiger line shapefiles that are updated, I think, annually. I downloaded the 2012 versions of their poly files. Another thing that I did was I downloaded images from the Navajo Nation websites that I was pointed to by the Navajo Nation Design and Engineering Services. Their maps are presented on these websites. They had police districts, grazing districts, chapter houses, and another project they worked on for the emergency management department called Operation Snowfall. That happened in 2010. And these are just georeferenced images that I wanted to cross-check to make sure that the polygons lined up. And then one last map that I needed was a base map layer, just to check for any inaccuracies in my boundary lines, or another thing that I got was the roadways. I wanted to check just some of the paved roads that we had out here. So some of the projections that were downloaded by the data, there's the USDA and then the Census Bureau both had different projection systems. And then I wanted to do combination projection options. The Navajo Nation DOT had a customized projection, but in order for me to use it, I needed to purchase the data, which I did. They're the projections based off of 73 base points around the Navajo Nation, and it minimizes distortion. And maybe in the future, if I do get the information, I could reproject the files. In my case, I used the GCS NAD 1983 Cores 96 just to have a common projection file amongst all the data. So every time I imported, I reprojected all my polygons to that projection system. The cross-checking process was probably the longest and most tedious part of the whole project. I had to set up meeting times with different people around the Navajo Nation. Most of them were faculty members at Navajo Technical College. I put all the information inside an Excel sheet, 110 chapter houses. What I found was the U.S. Census Bureau and USDA were inaccurate. I think both of them had multiple polygons calling out to a single chapter house, when in fact they were two different chapter houses but being serviced by one location. So that kind of designed my field tables, my fields and my tables for my polygons. The chapter houses, they're just recognized by the Navajo Nation as areas that need to be serviced. They work kind of like county information, but for the Navajo Nation, because we're a sovereign entity within the U.S., and we just use it to just represent different areas. Another thing that I did was create layers and check with downloaded Navajo Nation images. That was mostly because I wasn't sure if the USDA and the U.S. Census Bureau had all the information, because I kept getting new information from the interviews that I was having with local residents. So I georeferenced pictures from the NNDES they gave me those sites, and I just georeferenced the pictures that I got from those websites. I downloaded base maps to cross-check known roadways. This is one thing that I wanted to see, but I wasn't exactly sure how to go about it. I think most of this information that in going to roadways was very confusing because most of the construction didn't happen until something called the Bennett freeze was resolved back in 2009, I believe. And most of the roadways on the U.S. Census Bureau and the USDA DATABANKS are pretty dated. They don't even have a lot of the information, and it's very confusing, and you'll see that in my map that I present. So my topology rules for my polygons, once I got my data and my information, I did my interviews, I started setting up my database, and some of the rules that I wanted to hit were just for the chapter and the town. The ranking, this is my first time doing topology rules, so I just set the ranking based on what I knew from my civil engineering degree. My chapter and my town information were pretty similar. My chapters, I didn't want polygon or gaps in my polygon data, and I wanted to make sure that each of the chapter was covered by one county or two counties, U.S. counties, as well as serviced by a school district. The town must be covered by a chapter, county, and a school district to make sure that people are being serviced in those areas by the correct group. This is my database design. After my interviews, this is what I set up, and it's basically the information that I needed to complete my database. On to the left of the diagram, my feature data set for the boundaries include the chapter house for the Navajo Nation, town polygons, unified school district polygons, and U.S. county polygons, and that's where I applied my topology relationship. My second class, or my second data set, was transportation. The only one that I did really was a road. It's just a line feature class. And then my utilities, I didn't get any information from my utilities. The only utility that I could actually put up there that I'm actually using for another USC class is the microwave towers, and they're just points across the Navajo Nation, or just in general, that I got from the FCC. It's not really a part of this spatial design. I just had the information, and I just wanted to import it to have it part of my database. So my expected information that I want, I really wanted to address a lot of the issues with boundaries on the Navajo Nation, and most of them stem from the lack of communication, and as well as the generation gap between native language speakers and English speakers, the issues of the services to areas, especially to the utility lines and public services access. I wanted to make sure that I had at least a base for my database structure. It's not perfect yet, but hopefully over time, and I continue to develop it, which I will, we can apply this database to multiple projects that relate to the Navajo Nation. So this is my first polygon setup for the Navajo Nation chapter houses. I corrected a lot of the polygon files. For example, the Navajo Mountain area had 2 sets of polygons when really there's supposed to be 1 set of polygon. That happened as well with Tuba City area. It had 2 sets of polygons. I really don't know why. One polygon was sitting in another polygon, so I just combined them. Another issue is that these polygons added up to 111. After fixing Navajo Mountain, Tuba City, I found that there are really only 109 polygons. They're missing 1 chapter house, making it 110 chapter houses, and that would be the combination between the San Juan chapter house with the Nena Hazid chapter house. They just sit in the same area, so I'm guessing they just combined the two without telling anybody. One thing that I did notice when I did talk in the interviews with the local residents is that when I said Nenahazid, they kind of just took it as San Juan County, but in reality they're two separate entities recognized by the Navajo Nation. So there were many issues in finding the data. It took me a really long time to get this information in. The purchasing options were kind of different, and I needed to go and look at those purchasing options anyways. I do have access to the N2A data, but I need to go and pick it up because they only offer it in a CD form. They don't really have a download site or anything like that. During this research, I also gained major partnerships. Two of them were just by talking to people. One was the NTUA. They offered to build central. I offered them to build a central database for the utilities using NTC's technologies. After talking with the Navajo Nation departments, they all pointed me toward the EPA, and I got 3 internship opportunities for the students at NTC. Currently, they're applying. I think about 5 students are applying, but they're only accepting 3. There are also 2 students enrolled in NASA administrations that use my database. One working with Kisapa Consulting, and another one working with the American Indian Higher Education Consortium. They both use my polygons for their data in GIS. The OpenStreetMaps.org allowed digitization of the roads. I had to make sure that the roads were actually there. This will be my next map that I'm going to show you. This information was downloaded, and then I had to cross-check. This was the second part to the interviews. Mostly I got the eastern side of the Navajo Nation, a little bit of the northern side. You can see that there's like pieces of information that just kind of lead to nowhere. That's just because the road is paved there, but it kind of just stops and then it becomes a dirt road. In the northwest side, you can see in the Navajo Mountain area, there just seems to be a section of road that just exists out in the middle of nowhere, not connecting to any roadway. That's because there is a community out there, and they do have paved roads, but in order to get out there, you have to follow a dirt road that isn't recognized by any database. So I really don't. I didn't talk to anybody in that area yet. I'm from Tuba City, so I really don't know that much about the Navajo Mountain area. So further development for this data set, hopefully I can go into more of the boundaries based on population, based on education. I really want to focus on the edges of the Navajo Nation though, mostly because I did find something interesting in my topology relationship. There are areas that aren't serviced by a unified school district. It kind of just sits on an unknown school district, which is very odd. I went to the website and doesn't have any information on it, so I need to go further into that. Another thing, I really want that utility data set from the NTUA. One thing that we are working on currently at NTC is the Internet to the Hogan project, which is the ability to get internet connection across the Navajo Nation, which would be great. But I need to do further research on that. Other undeveloped areas that I haven't really hit upon were the grazing districts and the police districts. I do have images for them, and I did georeference them, but I need to make its own polygon set. Some of the boundary lines don't exactly line up with the chapter houses. Some of them overlap into other areas. For example, the police districts, they work with the chapter houses, but they're designed more to be in line with the U.S. counties, which is very confusing, I think, because they're supposed to be servicing the Navajo Nation, and the counties just split up our chapter houses into two sections. I think that's another reason why a lot of the polygons are split rather than gathered together. So really quick, I'm going to show you an example of my database here. Hopefully so here's my my database. I don't really have oh wait, here we go. I want to add my flash drive to this really quick to show you how much information I actually downloaded and filtered through. So this is all the information that I have in those particular areas. I had it separated by agency. Here's the transportation stuff that I needed to go by county. That was a very long process. Unified school district, I did it by state. So each of them have a shapefile in it. U.S. counties was pretty easy. And then I imported everything into this one database. Of course, it's not complete yet. Another thing I wanted to add to this was a raster set for a digital elevation model that I created earlier prior to this class. So here's my chapter house information. In the tribute table, I added an English version of the names. This is just for I combined my Excel sheet with the polygon data from the USDA and the Census Bureau's database. Here's the chapters and the Navajo names. I didn't get them all, but I did get as many as I could. Some of them aren't even in Navajo, some of them are in Spanish. For example, Ojo Encino, I'm thinking you say that. But I did the English translations of the words. I didn't get all of them. For example, I didn't get Indian Wells or Kanta's literal translation. Another thing I found was that the Navajo name is very similar to the English name. It looks like they just used the pronunciation of the word into English. It's just easier for them to deal with, I guess. I'm not sure, but I need to go further into that. Location of these chapter houses, an abbreviation. I changed some of the information because CNA doesn't mean Central Navajo Agency to anybody living on a Navajo Nation. They know it as Chinle Agency, which is confusing to anybody that doesn't live here, because I'm pretty sure not everybody knows where Chinle is or what Chinle. I don't even know where Fort Defiance is, but it's in the southern area of the Navajo Nation. I also included the grazing and the police department districts. We have Chinle, Kayenta, and then contact information for each of those chapter houses. So that's just an example of what I put together, and that's the first map. The second map was the road information here. A lot of this stuff had to be edited. I had to change the symbology to make it stand out a little bit. I did digitize a lot of this information. For example, in the old document, this intersection did not exist. The roads approached the intersection, but they didn't really touch. Another thing that didn't exist completely were roadways in the southern area. I believe this full line didn't exist here. I got this information from residents in that area. And these pieces of information I had to confirm with local residents to ensure that they actually do have a roadway out there. This one is even more confusing. We have two roads that are nearly parallel to one another, but that road does actually exist like that. So that's just the beginning of my. So I also have my town information. Those are polygon areas. Those are my school districts and my county information. So I put this in order here. So this is as far as I got for this semester. I didn't have a lot of time with the homework and on my job, but I did get a lot of information tied together in my topology relationship. I don't think I have it on this hard drive, but I do have it sitting on the NTC server, which be a part of the download file if you wish to access this. So thank you for watching.